Hello, ladies. Can you guys hear me? Let's see. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Hello. Welcome to the stream. Hello. I'm so excited for tonight's live. I have a special guest. Before I have her up, though, unfortunately, Haley of Trophy Wives Club was not able to join us, but she is going to come on next time. So I'm going to bring in Rachel. Hold on, let me fix this. Okay. Hope you ladies are enjoying your evening. So I'm going to bring in Rachel. Hey, Rachel, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I can hear you very well.
Yay. Okay, great. I'm so glad you're on the stream. Thank you for. Oh, there you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So hello guys. Welcome to the stream. I have Rachel on. I'm so glad she came up. I absolutely love her content. She's a really good femininity.
Hello. Oh, it's breaking up a little. We've lost your sound.
Type of lifestyle that is going to benefit all groups of women. Can you guys hear me?
You're back now. You're back now.
Oh my gosh. I don't know what's okay. Well, I tried to give you a little introduction, but you can go ahead and tell us about yourself, your channel, your content, what inspired you to do what you're doing, and just let the ladies in on more about you.
Yeah, sure. And first of all, thank you so much for allowing me to come on in. I'm excited to have this conversation with you and obviously to bring everybody in who's watching us now live and on the replay. So my name is Rachel Yvonne and I am the biblical femininity expert. So basically what I like to do is to help women, whether you're married or single, become the best version of yourself. So essentially I talk about becoming the dream woman for yourself and then for him. So we use the Bible as our foundation and talk about femininity, hypergamy, being the dream woman, all sorts of things that relate to you just really having the best life you could have possible. So I'm definitely excited to be able to be a part of this conversation today.
Okay, great. Yeah, I love I absolutely I don't know why that keeps happening. My thing keeps going off, but I'll try to I will try to make it through. Jeez Louise. Okay. So let's just get started into the conversation. So my first question for you is what made you want to be traditional and want to have this traditional lifestyle? And what about the traditional lifestyle just attracted it to you the most?
Yeah, you know what? This is actually a really great question and something that probably everybody should really answer for yourself as well. So while you're listening, think about your own answer. Like, how would you answer this question? And for me, I will actually say that I've always wanted to be a traditional wife. I've always actually desired this. But what happened was, I allowed, the Bible talks about not allowing the world's customs to kind of influence your decisions. And I
Mhm.
literally, have always been an entrepreneur. I started singing at a really young age and like being able to get paid for, my own kind of talents and gifts and so on. And so I always ascribe to the idea of a power couple. So growing up in the 80s and 90s, and kind of like being a part of that, you know, the Beyonce era, where you were told that as a woman you could do whatever you wanted, you don't have to get married, you don't have to rely on a man and things like that. So I kind of bought into that whole thing. And then I have been married before, and it didn't go the way that it could have done, because we weren't really aligned in terms of values and views and stuff like that. So I realized that the way that works better for me and for women like us is when you are very much more in your feminine and you allow yourself to be, you know, married to a man who is more in his masculine, who is ready to be a provider. And I didn't thrive at all when I was married. But then when my divorce came through, I was like, wow, this actually feels so good. And so I would say the last 2 years, 2 to 3 years, have been when I've really been more serious about this and saying, this is truly who I am. And that's something I've really kind of discovered in my work. The more I talk to women, the more that I kind of do this discovery with myself first, I've realized that most women, when you really truly ask their heart's desire, is to be in a traditional marriage. When you ask them the things that make them thrive, although they might not use the words, a lot of the times it is what we were born for. And that's really the direction that I love to take with this.
I definitely agree. That's amazing. I do think deep down that a lot of women want to live a traditional lifestyle, and particularly when it comes to being married, they want to be traditional and have a traditional marriage. So what are your thoughts on women that, like, have you ever come across any women that are against that? And what did you have to say to them? And what would you advise women to do if they're around friends or family members that are against this lifestyle?
Yeah, sure. I mean, because of the world that we live in currently at this time of recording, it is February 2022. And so we live in a world and a culture where what we're talking about today is considered old fashioned, or it's considered a trend, or it's considered like, you know, not attainable. It's seen as unattainable. Honestly, some people think it's unattainable. And they really kind of discourage women from living this lifestyle, because they're like, you know, you're asking for too much. Nobody can uh, survive in a one income household. And those are conversations I've had, even with family members. But the more I'm just like, yeah, I know that everybody can't do this, but it also depends on where you live. You have to think about this traditional lifestyle, and you know, I guess the other word that we can use for this is hypergamy. It doesn't necessarily have to anything to do with being a millionaire or a billionaire. I think that's the first misconception we can probably like get rid of, even right here at the beginning of this conversation.
Hmm.
People assume that's what we're talking about, but it's not. Everybody is not going to get to marry a prince, or you know, marry the founder of Facebook, or you know, whatever the person is that we're thinking about.
Right.
Everyone isn't going to get that. You know that, right?
Right. Yeah. 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 That's so true. I mean, there's not even like statistically, there's not even enough men that make that type of income to go around. I mean, as much as we probably wish, it's just not realistic. And I think a lot of women ignore the fact that as long as you have a man who is a provider, that's still just as good as a man who's like, has this status. I think the main focus on living a traditional lifestyle as a woman and as a wife is having a provider man who's not, selfish, stingy, but he makes sure that you're happy and he's able to give you the things that you need and even the things that you want. So, what would you can you hear me still?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. So what would you have to say for like the men that have those same talking points and telling women that what they want is just not possible, which is something that's traditional and has been done for centuries? What do you have to say about that?
Absolutely. And you know, I've done a lot of people found me like on Clubhouse, and I would be on stages with some of my friends who I love dearly, who disagree with me. And they would tell me, but Rachel, it's unrealistic. There aren't enough men, there aren't enough
Mhm,
this. And I know what they mean. So
mhm.
most of the time when this is being said, let me just say this, that it's mostly referring to black men. You know, most of the
Mm.
time when they
Mhm.
mention that this is unattainable for us, they're
Mhm.
referring to their own colleagues, even though most of the men that I've surrounded myself with would be in that category of, you know, if you marry them, you'll be hypergamous because of what they
Right.
earn and stuff. But they're like, well, all there aren't enough black men to be able to do this. So that's really
Mm.
what people mean when they say this. But in terms of the wider world, as in other kinds of men, cultures, countries, we have to learn. And I know that, you know, a lot of the women that do watch this channel will tend to be black women. And we
Mhm.
have to learn that sometimes if what you're looking for isn't in your immediate circle, then you need to move out of those spheres. I'm not saying it's not possible,
Mm.
because I've done it. Like, I've, you know, there are amazing black men that I know, that I've been around and, you know, dated, and yeah, they fit the bill of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
However, sometimes proximity, we don't always have that connection to, because of my family and because of network, which is
Mhm.
what one of the things that we've been talking about, that's how people get to those levels, because of the networks that I've built, and through my family and, like, you know, friends and so on, I have access to those type of men. But
Mm.
everybody doesn't. And so when you
Right.
don't, I understand the concept of them saying that, oh, you know, it's unattainable. But it's not unattainable if you are willing to move, maybe move churches, because I know a lot
Mhm.
of the women that watch this channel are Christian like us. And if you are a believer, you go to a different type of church where you'll find more of those men. And I don't know if you saw my story today, where I said that, like, you will
Yeah.
probably find, yeah, you'll probably find, if you go to church that's super liberal, that they do, you know, I've just made some observations and they've turned out to be true, that if
Mhm.
you go to a church where they're very much more on the liberal side and they mostly support democratic kinds of parties, regardless of the country, they
Mhm.
probably won't be as traditional minded. They'll be more
Mm.
into 50-50. Power couples are really
Mm.
popular for millennials and younger.
Mhm.
And so that's what you'll get sold as, you know, usually the pastor and his wife are like the power couple, and that's what you get sold as the goal. And everybody else in that church, the ministry leaders, are all like that. But then when
Yeah.
you go to traditional churches, or more conservative, I would say, you'll see that
Mhm.
yes, there will be more men in charge. Of course, they will, you know, have issues around. There are issues around that, of course. But what I'm saying is that the type of men that you're looking for will likely be in those areas. So you need to think about where you want to go, what kind of lifestyle you'd like to live. And if the people that don't fit that are not in your vicinity, then you need to go where they are.
You made so many great points. I absolutely agree. I mean, because there's just a lot of Black women in particular who, don't come from the best backgrounds or neighborhoods or home
Yeah.
situations. And so they're trying to, level up and have a traditional lifestyle. And they've decided for themselves, but they're really kind of, I would say lost or a little confused on where to go, or they try to stay in the same type of places, trying to find these types of men who are conservative minded and just in general traditional. And so it's very important that they, yeah, I think proximity and environment is such a big key factor in finding like minded people and the man that you want. And yeah, pretty practical said being a power couple is not the goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, one other thing I just wanted to jump in on there was that, you know, a lot of times, especially as Black women, I've traveled, you know, all over the world and so on. Obviously, for my accent, I'm from England, you know, so that's quite clear. But
Mhm.
what I've noticed that people will tell you, especially for Black women, that you should go to a HBCU. So for those who are watching from different parts of the world or who aren't Black, that's a historically Black college or university, which they have
Mhm.
in the USA.
Yeah.
And you'll get told that if you go there, you'll find a good Black man to marry.
Mhm.
But actually, you know, again, we're only looking at a small percentage of what we're talking about. And so, in actual fact, you're better off. So, if you're a lady who hasn't yet decided to go to college yet, I suggest that you do not go to a HBCU, because in a
Mm.
HBCU, you won't be special. Let's put it that way.
Mm,
Whereas if you choose to go to another school, I actually told a client this the other day, and she was asking me my opinion. I told her, no, if you've been asked if you can go to Yale to do your postgraduate, you need to go there.
go to
That's where
Yale.
you need to go. And she was like, why? My mom thinks I should go to like this black school she mentioned. And I was like, for what we're talking about, it's going to be better for you if you're in proximity to more
Right.
choices. And so that's another misconception, is that girls are told to go to sometimes to a HBCU, which doesn't always end up that well. But if you go to a normal college, yeah, so I love that. Go to a more diverse school. Exactly. Go where you are going to be celebrated. Read reviews from your friends, from people, and then decide, not just because it's expected of you.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, you definitely want to go to places where usually your like other black women or the stereotypical, I'd say, black women don't frequent. Just places where there are a lot of different cultures and different people, and there's definitely black women there. But the majority of everybody isn't black. Like majority of everybody, it's a mixture of everyone. And you're more susceptible to find like so many different people and so many different cultures, and you'll stand out. I mean, I grew up in my life, I grew up as the only black girl, and from preschool to like 12th grade. So I always struck out everywhere I went, and I was always getting like asked out, and different races of men courting me, but the young black guys, they just were not checking for me at all. But the non-black men were. And I had a lot of non-black girlfriends that were my allies and supported me as well. And I think for black women that come from neighborhoods or situations where that's not a possibility, and you're now an adult and you can make your own decisions and go wherever you want to go, gravitate towards places that you've really never been before. Because I find when I go to new places around new sets of people, I always come out with something great. So that's really, really good advice. So would you say, like, 'cause you said you spend a lot of time on Clubhouse, and I love Clubhouse too. It's a great place to hear different perspectives from different people. So what would you say, talking to a lot of the black men and women on Clubhouse, like what was your overall outlook on them, or your perception on them when it comes to this type of lifestyle? Like, did you get a lot of good feedback or not so good feedback?
To be honest, I think that the issue is, it's something that I've been addressing recently. The issue is that there are lots of women who are saying that they're a part of this lifestyle, but actually their life does not measure up. And so what happens is that people go on, like you'll get these screenshots that will be sent, around on social media, where a girl's in a conversation with a guy and then she's asking for money, or she's asking him for things, like there's an expectation, and it's like, she's kind of like setting this kind of standard. But then he's turning around and saying no, and then walking off. And obviously, this screenshot's going viral, and people are saying, "Oh, this is how girls are nowadays," etc. And so the problem is that there are women who are doing this who aren't, I want to say, at that level. Like, you also need to be a woman of substance. You also need to be, if you're saying that you're the prize, then
Mhm.
you need to carry yourself as the prize. You need to behave like you are. You need to also live and have personal standards for yourself that reflect what you are saying out of your mouth. And so personally, for me, when I'm not on Clubhouse anymore, but when I was on Clubhouse last year, with me, I wouldn't get pushback, because they'll be like, in fact, the men will come to my defense and say, "Oh no, not Rachel. Like, we know Rachel," or they'll say, "Oh no, Rachel lives this. Like, this is literally who she is inside out." And so I think that's the issue that we're having. It's not that people disagree with it. It's that if they don't see the evidence, they're wondering, wait, why are all these girls talking about this? Yet in their life, there is no reflection of such things. So if you're saying that you want princess treatment, or you're a queen, whatever the terminology you want to use, but yet your life and your lifestyle does not reflect that, and your level of your mindset isn't in that place, you're insecure, you have low self-esteem, low confidence, and you're using dating men as a way of boosting your self-esteem, then I would question and just say, hey, you need to actually work on yourself, and maybe not even date or even present yourself as date worthy, and work on your internal things. So I think that's the issue in this conversation.
That's really good. Yeah. Wow. You say like so much and I'm like, "Oh my gosh." That no, that's so true. I mean, as women, if you want this lifestyle, you definitely have to make sure that, you not only you talk the talk, but you walk the walk, right? And it's interesting because on social media, like so many people love to flex and put out false narratives and talking points, especially talking points that can bring other people down. um and it doesn't bear any fruit, and it doesn't, no one's learning anything from it. So what would you say to Black women who are looking to level up and be more traditional or even more on the conservative side? What would you say is the first thing that they do, like after they make the mindset switch? What is the first thing that you would suggest they do or should focus on?
Yeah, I think ultimately you do need to focus on yourself. And I think for Black women, that's sometimes an alien concept. You know, we grew up with the mindset of being superwoman. And I'm so grateful for some people ask me if I'm upset that, femininity has become mainstream. I'm like, no, no, no. Number one, it hasn't really become mainstream. It's just different circles are more talking about it. And number two, I think it's great because I think that we do need to have more awareness of this, because especially if you grew up with a mother who was quite strong and was like predominantly the breadwinner in your family, and she did everything by herself. And when you listen to a lot of celebrities, Black celebrities, and when they talk about their mother, what their mother did for them, and how they raised all 8 kids in the house and they had 7 jobs, that's what a lot of people grew up with. Even when they were married, it was this concept of their mum wasn't always, I want to say not always, because obviously there are always going to be exceptions, but their mother wasn't always taken care of. Or if she was, the husband was cheating, or you had like 3 extra families that you found out about at the funeral. And
Mm.
there are all these different concepts. And I think that for us as women, my first thing is to be holding yourself accountable. Self accountability is going to be key in this. So my first question on all of my coaching calls is this: if you could have, be, and do anything, what would you be doing now? I'm not even asking you about marriage. I'm not asking you about, anything. I'm asking you, what is it that you would be doing right now? What would you have? What would you be? And what would you do? And then if you knew that money was no issue, you could do whatever you desired, what would that look like? And then we start there. We start with the end in mind and work backwards, because I feel as though some people are jumping on so-called bandwagons, but they haven't thought it through. So I want you to think it through in terms of your true desires. What is your true desire around this kind of lifestyle, about being a traditional wife, about being a traditional woman, marrying someone who is a provider, dating only men who are generous and are providers? Um, I think that's the first thing I want to find out, is what do you want for you? And then the next thing that I kind of love to look at is, what are the areas in my life that I can improve in order to become this woman? So whether that's education, maybe you won't be able to get an actual degree right now, but there are a lot of courses, especially because of the pandemic. There are loads of places that are now giving discounts and free courses that you can still get. There is a lot of things available. YouTube is here, so you can get well versed on current events, on certain things that you would love to learn about. So educate yourself and become that woman. Because let me tell you this, that once you start to develop yourself, the type of men that you will attract will automatically change. That's
Mhm.
why, yeah, that's why one
Mhm.
of my themes and things to say is like, become the woman of your own dreams first, and then you'll become the woman of his dreams. Because I noticed that when my mindset around myself changed, that's when men reacted to me differently. And I've always been able to attract whatever I desire anyway. But when I started to be more strategic about it, my results literally 100 times were better. And it goes through every area of your life. So if you're a young lady on here or any age, in fact, let me just dispel this other myth that goes around the communities, that you can be too old to level up or whatever. I'm
Mhm.
38 years old and I've been married before. And when I tell you that it hasn't changed or stopped anything, men could care less, because when you present yourself as someone who is powerful, amazing, confident, knows who she is. Some women, you don't know who you are yet, so you're still discovering. So go on that journey of self discovery. And while you're doing it, have fun. Allow yourself to travel, experience things, but don't put relationships on the back burner. I think that's where some women in their latter years do regret.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I agree. I've said on my channel before, definitely live your life and cultivate the type of woman you want to be. But if you know you want to be married and to have children someday, create a life where you're always making room for that, where you're always making room for the man that's meant for you to easily come in and fit in with what you're doing, and so that you can fit in with him too. Because my channel is pro marriage, my platform is pro marriage. It's pro traditional. We're more on the conservative side here because I believe for Black women in particular, living a more traditional lifestyle is really going to benefit us considering the circumstances. Looking at certain statistics, it's much more better if we pursue a lifestyle and a marriage for those of us that want to be married, where we are in a traditional, more of a traditional setting. So I think everything you're saying is completely correct. The mindset, holding yourself accountable and being your best woman, and then the best man will come. And then the whole age thing too,
Mhm,
because I've
mhm,
seen a lot of older women think that they're too old or they've missed their time. This time they've hit the wall or something like that. So what is your thoughts like on that? Like how men come up with these talking points to make women feel like they're not qualified to get what they want.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I, because of my coaching and what I do, and like, in church and so on, a lot of my friends, they are these people that we're talking about. They are the podcast hosts. They
Mm.
are, you know, and I know them, and I'll see a meme and it will go viral, and I'm just like, well, here we go. And people are like, ain't that your friends? I'm like, yes, it's my friend. But just, we're not friends because we agree. We're friends because we have things in common, etc. But when and we will go back and forth about this, but they know me now. Like I don't argue. So I will just listen, and then I'm just like, okay, that's great. And let me go on my date with this man. Like, I don't argue with people when because I've realized that a lot of the time when certain men are speaking on these topics, they're very set in their ways and they know what they can do. So that is quite frankly none of my business, and that's what I've learned really quickly. What other podcasters say is none of my business. What's my business is my life and how Rachel conducts her life, and being the woman who is who she says she is. And I think when it comes to age, we need to understand that age is, like Aaliyah said, but actually maybe I shouldn't have referenced that. But age is just nothing but a number. It's about you, how you feel in yourself, but also being realistic with yourself. So I know I'm almost 40. I know this. I know certain things about myself. I know certain men that would prefer not to marry someone like me because of different things, because I've been married before, because I am over 35, because I have a public platform. So they're not interested in that. But then I go and I talk to people who are interested in a woman like me. And so I think that when it comes to age, I think the best thing about that is that use your age as a positive experience, as in that you've experienced life. You've traveled, hopefully you've traveled. hopefully you've had experiences of life. You haven't just been sitting in your house, because as much as we want to take courses, we want to be educated, we want to do things, if you never actually go outside, how is your man gonna find you? Is he going to come and steal you through the window?
Knock on your door.
Yeah, you need to go out. You need to go out. You need to travel alone. I've traveled alone, and I've met some amazing men when I've traveled by myself, and it's been a beautiful time. Go to conferences, go to events. If you don't like dating apps, there's other ways to connect. You can even ask friends for referrals. I've done it before. One of my friends, he sent me, he was like, oh yeah, you should talk to, he gave me a list of guys, and you know, and that's also good, because your network is your net worth. And this works for every single area of your life. Proximity to what you want will get you closer to what you want.
I love that. I love that a lot. Yeah, man, I haven't traveled on my own yet. I really want to. But I've only heard positive things from women that travel on their own. But I definitely don't think, I think the older you get, the wiser you get. And, men are much more visual than anything. So I've seen so many beautiful older women still get married, regardless if they have a child. And so when I'm here online and I hear these male podcasters talking about having a child and being older and not being married by a certain age is problematic, I'm just like, where is this happening? Because I'm seeing women of all ages, whether they're moms or not, get the man of their dreams and actually get married. So, that's what I'm like so confused about, is why these men keep using these talking points. But what do you
Mhm.
think about those men who claim to be like high value, but they have those beliefs, versus the men who are high value but don't have those beliefs? Like, do you what do you consider high value and not high value for as a man?
Oh wow, what a question. I think that my opinion on those men is I don't have one. So I'm really careful about, see, this is the thing that we can get caught up in, is like, you can start to, when you start to really kind of level up and pursue being a traditional woman, you can start to get a little bit of hate for men, because when you start to hear these stories and these, male coaches are saying whatever. First of all, I would say to not listen to them. And I know this sounds contradictory, considering, as I said, some of my friends are these great people. But when it comes to this, it's about eating the meat and spitting out the bones. Listen to what they're saying,
Mm,
but also, you do not ask a fish how to catch fish. You ask a fisherman. So just also bear that in
mhm,
mind.
mhm.
As nicely as, as great as these podcasts are, and for some reason I don't know why women can't listen to other women, but they'd rather listen to a man. I really
Yeah.
it's a little bit stressful sometimes, but I also understand, because I used to be one of those girls too. But I listen to my man. That's who I listen to. Like, I listen to what, who I'm dating. I listen to them, I listen to my dad. But yeah, you just got to be careful about this content. Let me say that. Just be careful about how much of that content that you're digesting, because what you focus on is what will expand in your life. So if you are constantly listening to the KSs of the world and whoever else is out there, because I literally do not watch, so I don't know. I only know because people send me stuff and I'm like, what is this? Anyway, and so when if you consume that kind of content, then you are going to start to feel like you're inadequate, you're this, you're that. But also remember what I said earlier, you do need to rise up to the standard. If you're going to make a standard for the men in your life to rise up to, then you also need to be worthy of that standard. And unfortunately, like we do have to learn things. We do have to learn how to have a bit more class or etiquette, or learn how to control our temper and
Right.
not be so emotional, because men who are high powered So this is my definition of the kind of men that we're kind of talking about. I'm talking about men who are high powered, so they've got a lot of power. So they might be a CEO, or like somewhere like a top manager in a company. They could be a leader in a church. So sometimes pastors and bishops, those kind of people where they've got a lot of power. They could be an entrepreneur who's got a great like social media presence, and they also are someone who has a high level of masculine energy, that you can literally feel like when you see them or when you see a post, you're like, oh my gosh, this man is such a man. So those are my definitions. And also for me as a believer, I have a few things that I have for my definition. And of course, we all get to define relationships for ourselves. So if what I'm saying does not apply, then of course, go ahead and find your own person that you can relate to. I know that I'm not for everyone, so I'm well aware of that. So one of the things I'm looking for in terms of a man of high caliber is this, that he could be the prophet of my home. So someone who has vision, a man with vision for our life and the life of his family. That's really important. I don't, and I've dated and I've been with potential before, and it doesn't really work out well for me because I am a visionary. I'm a creative, and I'm so grateful that my parents allowed me to be a stay-at-home daughter. So, and it wasn't a thing back then, but I've realized that I was very spoiled,
Hmm.
and they gave me the
Yeah.
freedom to be a visionary. So I'm a visionary. And so what happens is when I marry a man who isn't leading in that way, I end up overstepping him. And so I get into my masculine energy. And that's why I know that doesn't work for me. Because then I remember being like really sick physically and looking old. And when I look at my wedding pictures compared to now, I look like a different woman entirely, like 20 years younger. It's crazy. And so that's the first thing, is that they're the prophet. The second thing is that they're the priest, so the spiritual head of the household. So I'm looking for a man who is, I'm listening to what you're saying about the Lord. What do you know about the word? And of course, someone's going to tell me that I've dated preachers. Yes, I've dated preachers. Yes, that has been a pattern in the past, but I've realized that I actually don't need to be with a preacher or a senior pastor or a bishop. That's not what I necessarily need. I'm looking for other things now. So priest of the home, so someone that can lead me spiritually. The third thing is a protector, so someone that I feel protected with, that protects my name, protects the things that we discuss about, protects my purity. And I'm not talking about sex, I'm talking about the purity of my vision and who I am as a woman. And then the other one is provider. So someone who's willing to be and can be. They're two different things now, because there are many men who are able to but are not willing to. They still prefer
Mm-hmm.
the power. That's where we get the power couple dynamic in that way,
Yeah.
where they both bring their millions together. So my ideal is someone who's willing to be the sole or main provider of our household. So that's important. So what did I say? Provider, protector, prophet, and priest. Yep. So those are the characteristics of the type of man that I prefer to be with, and also the women that follow me.
Oh my gosh, that was so good. Yeah, men who are, I think there was even there's studies on this too, that say that men who are spiritual or Christian or are religious in any type of way, research has shown that they do make better partners and better husbands. They were also the least likely to commit any infidelities as well, pretty much not at all. And just a man who is has very good moral character and yeah, is a man of God and follows those qualities. They make the best partners, and they are out there. I've heard a lot of these, other people who don't believe this type of stuff is true, that you kind of have to pick one. You have to pick a guy who can provide, but yet he doesn't have the character and the spirituality to go with it. Or you can choose a guy who has the character, but he can't provide. And people fail to realize that both can exist at the same time. Just matters, like what you were saying earlier about proximity and the type of woman you are, will affect greatly on the type of man that you attract. So I love that. I love those qualities too. I've never
Mm.
even thought about the profit one either. So that's even more that's even yeah, that's a really good one. I'm gonna have to add that to my list too. Like that's
But
a good one.
But the funny thing as well is this, is that in one of Ginny Sale's book, I think it's The Sex Mystique, or anyway, it's in one of her books, she says this, that one thing that really helped her was knowing that men are not perfect, they're wonderful. And I think that's what we also need to understand. And that really helped me, because we start to, especially when we
Mhm.
start to date more and more of these type of men. So when you start to, like, the sky literally becomes the limit now. So when you're surrounded by these type of men and you're like, oh wow, this is so amazing, this life is awesome, I'm so loved, I'm so protected, I'm so
Mhm.
cherished and adored, then when they do something wrong because they're human, you're like, what? I thought this was the epitome. So you have to be careful with that, ladies, as well, is that men are wonderful but not perfect. And that can really help you, especially if you've watched and consumed a lot of this content on other channels where it kind of sounds like they kind of hate men. So you can go and spiral down that way if you don't remember that one concept. So I've added that to mine, to one of my affirmations. It's like, men aren't perfect, but they're wonderful. I'm not perfect, but I'm wonderful. And so this kind of helps in changing your mindset around men, so that when you meet them, you know they're not perfect. It doesn't mean you make excuses for them. There's a difference between abuse and, a compromise. But you're able to submit to a man who shows these qualities, because you already know what that's like. And so that's really been key for me as well.
I love that. Yeah, definitely affirming the qualities that you want in a man, and telling that to yourself more than the things you want to avoid, and just all those negative qualities, I think are going to be much more important. Yeah, I was just talking about this earlier today on another live stream, that there's a lot of women that have content circulated on just the negative things that men are doing, and nothing is positive, and it can really cause a mindset shift for a woman watching to solely look at men that way, to solely look at them as negative while still wanting a good partner. And it's like you can't really do both. Like, you can't affirm the negative things all of the time and then still expect to find a good man or attract a good high value man into your life. So that's what that's what I was talking about earlier, and it was just so interesting. So back to some femininity. What how did you, for you personally, like, was there ever a period in your life where you figured out that you needed to work on being more feminine, and what was that process like for you?
You know, what's funny is that I've always been a girly girl. From when I was little, I've always been a girl who, one of my dreams when I was small was to have a doll's house. I remember at I think it was my 21st, no, I was older because I had my own apartment. So I feel like I might have been 30, maybe, no, 25. Wouldn't have a party. Anyway, I'm so old now, I can't remember birthday parties, but um, I think it might have been my 20 something birthday. Anyway, my mom bought me this doll's house. And because she knew that was one of my dreams. So when she found one, she was like, here you are, this is your present. We wasn't sure if you'd still like it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. So I've always been like a very feminine girly girl. But then what happened was I kind of like bought into the whole independent woman, you can do whatever you want. Like, it's a man's world, you can be a man too, kind of thing. And I kind of bought into that. So I wasn't fully myself. I became more in my masculine energy, although those around me will probably say I was still very feminine. But when I look back, retrospectively, I can see where I was more in my masculine. But this is the thing as well, is that sometimes we can be feminine presenting, but you can still have masculine energy. And some people don't really understand that dynamic, but that's something I am learning more and more now, is that oftentimes some women who are more so-called feminine presenting, or very pretty, very attractive, they get a pass because of that. But then I'm like, but that person's like really exuding strong masculine energy, but it's all good. And so I feel like the older I get, I don't want to say that you have to wait till you're as old as I am. I think that it's just because I was one of my personality traits is that I'm a people pleaser. And so what I would do is that I would just kind of like join in with what other people were saying, and like whatever was popular, whatever was going to make me the most popular is what I would do at the time. But now I don't really care about any of that. My goal is to always be more me than I've ever been before. And that's why when I got divorced, because I actually been married twice, and when I got when I got divorced the second time, the day that it was final, honestly, I felt like there was such a burden that was lifted off my shoulders, because I remember thinking while the process was going on, I was like, wow, this is the best time of my life. I've never felt more free, because I realized that I had been living my life for other people. And for me, femininity has always been a part of my life, but it's only been in the last like 3 years where I've gone and I've been like, no, this is who I am, and just being super assertive in my feminine journey. And for me, femininity is um, something that is inherent to all of us, but it is something that we can either grow in, or we can allow to be lowered in our lifestyle. So it depends on how it's like a muscle that you work on. You can either leave it and let it be dormant, or you can work on it. And so that's kind of like been my journey around that.
I love that. I love what you said too, that you pointed out that, whoops, sorry. I don't know. On my mic. But I just was saying that a lot of people think that femininity is all about, the external, and
Mhm.
still on the inside, you can be masculine. And I think that was like when I first came into the femininity space, that was a big criticism, was that it focused more on like hair and makeup and your style, and just places to go. But, the mentality still wasn't there. So, what are your tips for women to combat those challenges with their mentality of letting go of the masculine energy, and maybe things from their past that kind of force them to be always in survivor mode or to be masculine? Like, do you have any tips for women to channel their femininity regardless of their style?
Yeah, and and I think that the reason why fashion is brought up is because it does help. There is a sense of like
Mhm.
when you are dressed a certain way, so even down to how you are around the house, because sometimes it can feel performative when people are only doing it when they go outside. But for me,
Right.
it's an entire lifestyle. So, you know, um, when people, when I was staying with my parents over Christmas. I was with them for a while, and they're just like, is this what you're wearing? I'm like, yes, I'm going to be, this is what I'm wearing. They're like, where are you going? I'm going nowhere. We're sitting in the house, but this is how I dress. And when I wear to bed, they're like, wow, you're dressed up. I'm like, yes, because I'm not going to practice something that when I get married again, I haven't created a lifestyle. So I wear like really nice lingerie, with like a fancy robe, and amazing slippers. In fact, for my birthday this year, my mum bought me these like red furry slippers from Victoria's Secrets, because she saw it and she was like, oh my gosh, that'd be perfect for you. And so it's
Mhm.
funny that when you start to be serious and you make this who you are, and you really kind of get clear on who you are, others in your life will start to also address you accordingly. And I think that the main tips that I want to give around becoming more feminine and like leaning into your feminine energy is, first of all, getting back in touch with your true desires, because feminine journey and femininity is about feeling, it's about being, and it's about being present with yourself. For so many of you that are watching this, maybe live and on the replay, you haven't given yourself permission to look internally and see, who am I? Who am I? And what are the things that I dream about every single day? Because that's why when you watch like Pride and Prejudice and any Jane Austen um, movie, you'll notice that the ladies, what did they do all day? They read, they did music, they played piano, they went on walks and things like that. They were given space to be creative. Even when you watch Bridgerton, which is coming back soon, you see.
Love that show.
Yeah, yes, me too. I'm excited about the new season. You see elements of that even in that lifestyle. Of course, because they have an agenda, they're going to show us that, oh, women aren't fulfilled and they want to be this because it's there's an agenda. But in general, as women, when you're able to be free, to be creative, to be yourself, start there. What would I be doing if I could have, be, and do anything? What would my life look like? Because once you start there, you're able to get in touch with your creativity, whether that's, so I sing, I play piano. Um, um, when I was younger, I did some dance as well. I'm about to start horse riding lessons again. And so things like that, you want to be able to be creative, take time to go out in nature, whether that's walking, whether that's just sitting outside in the sun for a little bit. I love to do that in my house, just sit outside in the garden, because the weather where I live is pretty awesome right now. So we'll sit outside and just like in the morning, just kind of spend some time in nature, be spiritual. I know a lot of the women who are on this channel will be Christian believers, and so spend time with God. Like allow yourself permission in the mornings. I have the luxury of doing this, but I don't usually set an alarm unless there's something I really want to wake up for. So what I try to do is go to bed at a decent hour, get enough sleep, nurture my body. And then when I wake up in the morning, I lie in bed and I start to use my imagination. I dream. I call it, there's a process called dreaming with God, where I just sit there and dream about what would my ideal life look like. And one of the scenes I keep seeing is I'm at my wedding reception and my husband gets up and he says, from the moment I heard her voice, I knew she was the one. And literally every time I start every time I start daydreaming, I see that. But also it's one of my affirmations as well that I use. My husband says, blah blah blah. And so those are the ways you can start, by giving yourself space to dream and also dive into your imagination. The Bible tells us, in the Passion Translation, there's a passage, Ephesians chapter 3. He says, I pray that your eyes of your imagination be illuminated. So there is a depth of your imagination where you will be able to dream things that are beyond what you have ever imagined, because that is what God actually wants for your life. We have sometimes been sold a lie that you must be lower or humble or whatever the way they use the definitions. But actually throughout scripture we see that God encourages us to dream even bigger, because again, eyes haven't seen, ears haven't heard, neither has it entered in the heart of those who love God what he has prepared for them. And so when you start from that position, you're able to kind of really see what is possible. So those are the ways that I would start. And find women that you admire. Who are the women that you admire that you think exude femininity and have great, like, amazing sex appeal? Because that's important too. And follow them and shadow them and see what they're doing. What are they saying? How do they come off? And what are the ways that you can see differences in how they deal with things and how I deal with and how you deal with things. I'll say this one last thing. Someone noticed how I respond to men in terms of, like, if we're having an argument or I'm upset with something, and they were like, how do you do that? And I said, well, I've realized that as women, we have more emotional intelligence, and that's the men that we deal with, which are high powered, high caliber men. They can be emotional because of the kind of jobs they have and the stress and stuff like that. So you bring your strength with your emotional intelligence. And so I know how my emotional intelligence works. So I know that maybe I need to eat. Maybe my period's coming next week. Maybe I'm upset about something else, but not about what he actually did or said. And so you have to just be aware of yourself so that you can respond appropriately and accordingly. So those are the ways that I would start in that area.
Oh my gosh, I love everything you said. I totally agree. I just keep saying that. I just agree. I just agree with everything. Um yeah, definitely setting up a routine for yourself, being aware of your hobbies, your feelings, your emotions, keeping track of yourself, keeping a journal, maybe writing all this stuff down will help. And I think that will definitely help you to feel and to be you. And I like how you brought up um, uh, previous like writings of I think you said it was Jane Austen, and just how women from those times, their everyday life, because I know for sure, as Black women, we're expected to be, always working, and we don't have the luxury of having that type of image put onto us as women who are allowed to rest and be creative and to feel and to be comfortable doing that. Because, of the circumstances that a lot of Black women have had to deal with, just doesn't allow them to do that. So, or at least growing up for sure. So I love how you gave that you painted that picture, because for other women it's so normal. And I think the femininity movement for Black women is has been so popular because it's letting us know it can be normal for us as well. And matter of fact, it's actually going to serve us even more so and get us the things that we really want. We do have a question. So Bula asked, any advice for a Black female commercial construction worker? So
Yeah, and I saw that she
I
gave
think,
some background. Yeah, that she
yeah,
does do so much.
she worked,
Mhm.
right. She works in like a male dominated space. So any advice for women like that who want to channel into their femininity?
Yeah, and I think the default for us in those situations is to be more aggressive and to kind of match their energy. But actually, yes, that will get you attention and so on. But what will happen is that you won't always get the results that you desire, even though you may like initially they might say, oh, okay, cool, I hear you. But instead, um, honestly, I know a lot of people do think that that isn't the safe world for us. So if my first piece of advice, I know it's going to be quite drastic, is I do think that we should work in spaces that are safe for us, that make us feel enhanced in our femininity. But if it's a role that you love and you want to stay in that world, then here are some ways that you could staying into your feminine energy. Is that when you stay in your feminine energy, you're unique. So my thing is, whenever I've been around a lot of men in a male dominated space, I've actually I've actually leaned back more into being feminine. I've actually slowed down and wait for everyone to stop speaking and just like ignore certain comments or address only certain things, and learning how to compliment and having a different way of conducting myself in those areas. Because actually, being a woman in a male dominated space can be better for communication and also for the skill set in that arena. And I know it can be hard to be able to stay feminine during those situations. But I think that because they already know that you're a girl, you know what I mean? Like, we don't have to be one of the boys because they already know. uh you got a spam at a bot. um they already know
I
that
don't
you're a
know who that
woman.
was. Sorry. I just paused it.
They already know that you're a woman, and so it's like you are able to show up by starting and allowing yourself. I think that more importantly, it's better not to put on that masculine energy, but rather to display even more femininity in those areas. And so I think that if you do that on the way to work, so one of the pieces of advice that I gave to a client that was actually asked a similar question, was that before you get there, like, what is your journey like on the way to work? If you're commuting, are you like listening to something that's relaxing, or are you like stressed, as like you're so intensely stressed on the way in that it's affecting your well-being? And then when she sat and thought about it, she realized that, oh, actually, I don't feel good about getting up for work in the morning. I said, okay, well then I would invite you to look at a different path, because we have to see what else is happening around that day. Um, but if you feel connected and you feel amazing, on your way, like, I can't wait to get into work, then stay in that space and don't allow what they do to affect you. You remain calm, you remain sweet, you remain as feminine as you could be in your own strength. and know who you are in that space. And then what happens is, once people start to know, oh, she can't be messed with, then what will happen is they will start to change the way they speak to you. They'll know, hey, Miss Walker. Okay, well, when you see her, you say good morning, ma'am. You know how to react to her, because you have set them up for success around how they relate to you.
That was good. That was good. Yeah, definitely leaning back, establishing those boundaries and those standards.
Boundaries, yeah.
Yeah, and I they people will take you seriously. I mean, you know, because a lot of what I've heard a lot of other people say is that, men will only do what you allow, really people in general. So if you just don't allow certain behaviors and without even having to be too aggressive, just choose what you want to respond to and
Mm,
then always be mindful of how you respond. I think that is much more effective than, like you're saying, getting angry, getting aggressive, and not controlling your emotions, just being really, really emotional because men don't. What I've noticed in my personal life is men don't tend to respond as well to so much emotion. They tend to respond much more to your actions, or maybe even if you do less. Like less is more sometimes. That works too, from what I've experienced as well. Um, so we've already been on for like an hour, and I didn't want to keep you for so long, but you said so many amazing things, and I'm just enjoying hearing what you have to say. I guess I have one last question for you on, living a traditional lifestyle. So what type of traditional beliefs that you think um, women should grasp onto that in today's modern world we're told is wrong? If you can think.
yeah, that's a really great question. I think pretty much everything I've said. One of the things I've realized is that I don't, obviously, I am, on social media, so I do see things, but I've realized that it doesn't have anything to do with me. Learning and knowing that it's none of your business will absolutely be great for you. Whatever celebrity couple has got together, whoever's pregnant, whoever's divorcing, whoever's, it's literally none of your business. And so, yeah, we might comment on it for social, conversation, and we might talk about it on these channels because that's what we do. But you, in your life, in our own personal lives, we're not thinking about. I'm not thinking about Beyonce. I'm not thinking about Beyonce's marriage or what Rihanna's doing with her pregnancy, because it has nothing to do with me. So one of the things I will say is to keep your eyes on your own paper. Worry about yourself. I'm coming out with all the cliches today, but literally, you do need to concern yourself with your own life.
Mm,
Be as focused on your own self journey, your own self love, your confidence, your self concept, which I talked about earlier, about making sure that I do not have a thought in my head about myself that God does not have in his head about me. So you're making sure you're only defining yourself by who he says you are, and you're not allowing, you know, if you see a social media post and you get triggered, you know how people put posts like on the really popular pages, there'll be like posts that will relate to this lifestyle,
yeah,
and you could get triggered by reading the comments because people be like, I couldn't do that, or it's interesting. So
right.
if you do feel like you are easily triggered or easily influenced, then unfollow those accounts, even block them, and only surround yourself in spaces where you are challenged in a positive way, and to give yourself permission to say, you know what, this is what I truly desire. So it goes back to my question where I asked, if you could do whatever you wanted, what would you really do? Because if it's a true desire, in the book Think and Grow Rich, we learn that you must have a burning desire, and your brain will magnetize to whatever it is, a burning desire. So if being a traditional wife and having a traditional lifestyle is not a burning desire, then what would happen is, like the Bible talks about, being tossed to and fro by every wind of doctrine. That's what will happen. You will end up getting, when it's not popular anymore to be feminine, you'll move over there. When it's not popular again to date interracially, you'll move over there, and you'll just be like a pendulum, rather than being a woman of standards who sets the tone for her own life. That is who you are. And I think that once you do those things, you will truly see a difference in what you manifest in your life, what you're able to create. And like I love to say, co-create with God, because that's essentially what you're doing. So when you know there's no limits, and you decide, like, for me, I'm at a place in my life where I can look at the shade room or look at whatever channel, whatever, and it doesn't affect me. I can laugh, I can talk about it with my friends who are on this journey, and we can laugh about it. But we know there are other ladies in our communities who are not at that place. And so wherever you are on your journey, eliminate. The Bible even talks about this, about protecting your eyes, your ears, making sure that you're digesting the right things so that you produce what does the word say? Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So whatever it is that you've been feeding yourself with, that's what's really going to come out. So you can only fake this for so long. You can only go on so many dates with these type of men before you realize, wait a second, I'm out of my depth, and where you're not getting the results you desire, etc. So those are, some of my words of advice for not allowing yourself to be distracted and inspired, or just kind of like allowing them to influence you. Mhm.
Right. Yeah. Ooh, you said so much, but it's so true. I mean, it's so easy to get influenced by this modern world and to jump on bandwagons. I mean, a lot of us that are in the YouTube spaces a lot, we're seeing a lot of different movements going on with Black women. And, recently there's been some discussions and some divisions taking place amongst Black women here in the BWE space. And it's being discovered that a lot of women in this space were joining things because it was popular and it sounded good. But then after a while, they were like, actually, I can't get with this anymore. It's just not me. And it's just so important to always pay attention to that voice and to pay attention to what does not feel good to you, because what doesn't feel good and what does feel good is like what's really going to shape you. And you need to stand firm on those things, because that makes you you. And aligning with everyone else, even through the craziness and the chaos, it's just going to deter you from your goal, and it's going to deter you from paying attention to yourself and figuring out who you are, so that you can grow and be the person you can be. So like you're saying, Rachel, like when you meet someone, you don't run out of death. You're not just jumping onto things with no meaning, and and you can't even like explain why you're a part of them, and you can't even really pay attention to if this is you or not. And it's like you're being a whole nother different person, and being a whole nother different person and jumping onto things, that type of stuff runs out, and it doesn't give you anything in the end.
Absolutely, I agree with you. Absolutely, I think that we just need to be aware of what do we really want, and only focus on that. Ignore everybody else and everything else.
Right, exactly, exactly. Well,
Oh,
thank you so.
I love
Oh,
what Mocha Money Mummy said. That she said she feels like celebrity gossip does hurt her spirit. Yeah, like I only look at that content because my clients might ask me, or like, for Facebook group content and things like that, we talk about it. But if it's not, we really have to learn how to mind our own business. And so I'm so glad that you decided to do that, because that helps you to protect your peace. Like, someone asked me about a certain thing that's happening right now. And I was like, I ain't got a clue what's happening, because I'm not watching the news. Like, I'm not watching it. I only know if you bring it up, because I am very, empathetic, and I want to protect, like she said, protect my peace. And I think it's important that we're able to do that and know that you're a powerful person. You are a powerful person. And even though wealth might not have come, you might not have been born into wealth, you can create wealth for you and for a legacy. For my theme is from 5 generations, and you can create your world and decide that you have the power to change things in your life. So I definitely agree with this.
100%. Yeah, there's so many different blogs and Instagram pages and other YouTube spaces I had to unsubscribe to because it wasn't feeding me and it was just making me feel like not myself. So I had to get rid of that. Um, but because you just mentioned something too that for women who aren't born into the best circumstances, so and they want to, level up and get themselves into a different lifestyle. What would you have to say if they are a little bit doubtful and a little bit fearful because they believe that it's not attainable for them? Like, what would you tell those ladies to do to keep their confidence up and to keep, their eyes on the prize? So I'd say.
Yeah, I think that again, I've said before about self accountability. So making a self assessment. So writing down the things that you have experienced, or the things that you where you live and your socioeconomic background and things like that. Being clear of that. So what's not going to help you is ignoring it. What's not going to help you is going in too deep too fast. Just be aware of the things, but don't make them negative in your life. So you can use the fact that, say, if you have a child and you weren't married when you had that child, or you were a teenage mom or whatever, yeah, that might not be the best circumstances. However, you can use it for your good because it's an experience that shows that you're a good mother, that you probably have resilience, you probably are someone who has strong emotional intelligence, because being a mother isn't easy. And so you learn how to, mother and nurture. You have mothering skills, you have nurturing skills. You probably are a skilled person, even if you didn't get to finish high school, for example. And so you have to look at things not in a negative way, but look at them as a part of your life experience. And so that's how I look at everything. It's like, what can this be used to teach me? What is it I've learned over the, whether you're 19 or 69? It's irrelevant. But what have I learned over this time, and how can I become a better woman? Always be looking for ways to be better. And that's a mistake that some people can make, is that once they feel like they've arrived, they don't do anything else. But one of the ways you can keep yourself accountable is by remaining teachable. You'll never know it all. If I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm in the wrong room. Like, if I know everything, I don't even need to be in that room. That's ridiculous. And so you want to be surrounding yourself and keep yourself accountable in that way, and then be realistic, but also dream about your goals. So, like we said earlier, the majority of us will not be marrying millionaires and billionaires. And I've dated a couple of millionaires, but that's because of proximity again. So you have to kind of like see about your proximity, but you will be able to have a traditional life, because I remember one of my friends was saying this, that a salary that could support a household in a certain part of America wouldn't work in another part of America. And so you have to know this, know your goals, because maybe just because you see the aesthetic of black girls in luxury, you might not want that. You might prefer to be a homesteader. So follow those type of women on
Mm,
Instagram.
mhm.
Women, I follow those women because I learn a lot from them about home life, about cleaning, about cooking, and like growing your own vegetables. You might decide to be a
Yeah.
homesteader, so they tend to be a more
Like slow living and
yeah, and they
cottage
yeah.
aesthetic.
And you don't
Yeah.
need to be married to a millionaire to do that, do you? But if you're looking
Right.
for the jets and the Dubai, and like, we just need to be aware. What
Right.
is your true desire? I'm always going to go back to, oh my gosh, this cat is screaming. I hope you can't hear. But what you need to go back to is, what is you really want? Are we following aesthetics, or are we following our heart's desire?
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, I've seen a lot of the Black girl in luxury. I post a lot of Black girl in luxury-esque type of photos, but I also make sure to post photos where it's just like everyday Black woman living life and they're well kept and they take care of themselves. I personally, if I had to choose, I'm probably more of like the homemaking aesthetic versus the, Birkin bag and Jets lifestyle. Um, Not that I don't think it's attainable for me, but I've never really been a super materialistic person and needing the latest of the latest, most expensive designer pieces. I'm more of a just give me the best quality thing and then that's good for me instead of me needing the latest thing off of the runway every season. That's me personally, but it's you definitely have to figure out if what you want, do you want it because of it being an aesthetic or do you want it for a bigger reason, a deeper reason? And does it align more so with your purpose? Because I think if you go more towards that, you'll end up being much more happier in the long run.
Yeah, I agree. And I've always been, listen, from when I was a little girl, my grandmother took me on my first trip to America. I think I was like 7, and she took me to Disney World. And from, and my grandmother said to me, I'll never forget, she said, Rachel, you have expensive tastes. And, you know, I don't know why that just came to my memory, but I just realized, wow, I've actually always been like this. So I think you should always be whatever it is that you want to be. And I'm a mixture of like luxury and homesteading. So like I want to be wealthy enough that we can have our own farm, because where I live, some people that I know, they have like goats and they have chickens, and I'm like, oh my God, but they're very wealthy. So you can still do both. So it's like, you know, again, what do you truly want? When you were a little girl, what did you desire? And so I keep coming back to that. So remember what my grandmother said is so true. And the things I used to do as a child, and when I used to do make believe, and I would sing in church, and I always imagined myself being on a big stage. And then what did I do? I manifested that in my life by singing on live television in front of like millions of people, being a part of a TV reality show, and a bunch of other stuff. You will always magnetize your burning desire. And that's what women need to go back to. What do you actually want? Then pursue that only and ignore everybody else and everything else.
Yeah, that's so important to always identify the root cause of, your desires and your goals and just always giving yourself like a heart check through everything. And I think that's really going to help to keep you within alignment with making sure you don't fall into fear, don't fall into doubt, you don't believe the lies. Because, everyone loves to bring up statistics and data, specifically the ones that don't favor Black women. But honestly, all the data that I've seen, the only things that are lacking is Black women being married. And that is for a lot of reasons. And a lot of people want to say it's because, you know, we're just simply undesirable, but it's actually that's not true at all. There's more research to confirm that young Black women are rejecting non Black partners. There's more research to prove that Black women are simply just happy being single and they don't see high quality partners in their network. So they actually are choosing to be single and happy or be around family and friends versus having a husband. And there's so many other reasons as to why, a lot of Black women don't have the lifestyle of being traditional. And those reasons are not all falling on us being undesirable or we need to, work on our image and things like that. Because when it comes to education, employment, entrepreneurship, Black women are excelling in all of those things, and those things are much more beneficial to society as a whole and are much more beneficial to you being a productive citizen as a whole. So I think that uh, us channeling our femininity and trying to achieve that traditional lifestyle can be just as easy as Black women going to college, starting a new business. And if we put in that same effort, because we have the ability to put in effort into things, we see this. And if we put it into effort into those other areas, it's going to be easily achievable. And I think a big portion of that is changing our environment and our proximity, like you've been saying, and exposing yourself as a Black woman to places and to people and to cultures that you have never really been around ever before, but yet they still are beneficial for you to be around. You can still make great connections and you can still learn new things. And even if you don't make any connections, even if you really don't learn anything new, you still leave with inspiration that will make you want to do something special or different in your own life when you go away from those spaces.
Yep, I agree with you. And honestly, if anything that ladies take away from this conversation is to just really like fine tune your own true desires and pursue those things. Because once you start to do that, the men, if you look at a lot of the stories, a lot of the success stories that people use as case studies, you'll notice a familiar theme. The woman was doing what she loved to do and the man found her doing that, or and that's been like the majority of the stories. Of course there's always going to be exceptions, like found in a store, working in a store, or dancing, or whatever, but majority of the women were found pursuing their passions, whether they were modeling, whether they were singing, whether they were a business owner. They were found doing what they love doing. And there's nothing more attractive than a woman who's fully in her power, who feels confident as a woman, and she's able to show the world who she is.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, I don't know why I keep hearing other people saying that, like, if you do want the traditional um, lifestyle, especially through marriage, that you shouldn't be focusing on um, career or your education doesn't matter. When I see traditional couples with real like high character, high value men and feminine women, she had things going on in her life. Like obviously she wasn't, rejecting new relationships for her hobbies and her career, but she had them. Like she had something going on that she loved, that was interesting and that was attractive. So, it's crazy to see other men talk about, you need to let all those things go, or those things aren't very impressive and aren't very attractive. And instead, you need to be, more about the man and his needs and how you can be submissive and all these things. And of course, if you're traditional, you believe in those roles to your husband. But in the dating and meeting people phase, you still have your own life and you still focus on the things you like and you try to learn new things, and you're open at the same time to welcome in those new friendships, those new relationships, those new connections. But you don't put those great parts of yourself to the side to make this man that you're meeting feel more comfortable and feel more valued.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with you. I think there's a misconception when we say that there is something that said that when men don't particularly care about your degrees and stuff, it doesn't mean they don't care if you're educated. It means that that's not the first thing they're looking at. But by all means, pursue passions. And we said this earlier. Don't be one of those women who looks back and said, I focused on my career, I focused on my education, and now I feel like I'm unmarriageable. So be one of those women who's goes after your passions, goes after everything you want to do in your life, but also create space. That's why for me, even in my journey as an entrepreneur, there was a time where I was like, oh, I love being busy. I actually prefer now, most of my content that I do that my clients buy is already been done, or repurposed content, or videos where I'll just come alive and talk for 30 minutes, and that's a training session, and that's it. I'm no longer available for hustle or anything like that, because I'm creating space in my life for when I'm with my husband and his children and whatever children we might have together. If that happens, I have space for that. I have space to travel. I have space to just jump up and leave and go away for 3 days, because I'm not tied down by our business. Because what's happened for a lot of Black women is they've swapped the boardroom for the bedroom. They've actually allowed themselves to work 60-hour weeks from home, when you left your job for what? Like, why did you leave your job? Did you leave your job so you could work another um, a business that where you work more hours than your other job? Those things are not making sense to me. And so you create space in your life for the life that you are manifesting. So I work I only do things that make me feel good. Like, I love the stuff that I talk about. Being on this live is work, but I'm enjoying it. I love this conversation. These are the things I'm passionate about. So once you set your heart there, then everything else becomes easy, and you're able to make space for the men that you desire to have in your life.
I agree. Sorry that I don't know. There's some person in the chat kind of talking a little crazy. Um, but I love how you said that, you're married now and, um, you still have the ability to go out and do things for yourself. Because of what I hear a lot of in this space about marriage is that it's going to be, that it's going to be just this unpleasant time, and you're, some women think it's going to be like this time where you're like in bondage or something, where you're just constantly serving your husband and kids, and where you don't have time to yourself to be to still do the things you want to do that you've always done. And my parents have been married for over 30 years, and my mom is, is traditional, of course, but my mom still has the time to do fun things. We live on the West Coast, so she loves to go to the beach like a few days of the week by herself. She'll get in the car and just sit by the water and have her journal, and she'll be there for majority of the morning before she comes back home. And I think it's just so important to have a man that respects you and values your hobbies and the things you like. Because before I was like into this stuff and into femininity and leveling up, I was coming across all kinds of men that would actually mock me and make fun of me for having hobbies, and would call me lazy, and would call me like I don't have a purpose because I have things that I like to do and I'm not like muling out here, you
Mm.
know? So what do you think about that? Like coming across people where they're kind of tarnishing those special parts about you.
Yeah, I let people be themselves. So one thing that one thing, I am not actually married now. I say a lot of things in the present tense because it's how I it's kind of like how I talk, in terms of, like, I always talk in the present tense because of affirmations and words of power and stuff like that. But I am currently in between marriages, is like what I always say. But what I've realized is that when it comes to, oh my gosh, I just lost my train of thought. Remind me again what we were talking about.
No, no problem. Just, dealing with certain men that, or just certain people really, that want to mock and make fun of you for you wanting to take time to rest and tap
Ah,
into your
yes.
femininity, especially for Black women, because the image of us being mules and working, that's an image that's placed on us a lot. And when you try to do something different, you get kind of looked at like, what's wrong with you?
Yes, yes, yes. So I would say that what's interesting to me is that that's one of the ways that I kind of like will kind of test men. Is when they ask me what I did today, I'm like, oh, I didn't do much. I was just kind of like relaxing, and I went and got my nails done or whatever. And I kind of gauge how they respond to that, as to know whether or not it's something I want to continue doing. And so, because I present myself as someone who's like, um, kind of free, easy to get along with, and that I'm not tied down to a particular schedule, I make sure that that's how my schedule is. So I keep myself quite flexible around those areas, which is what I was saying earlier about, like, not working so many hours and like not really focusing on that so much. And that's a way that I kind of test them. So if they start to say, oh, what, you don't work, or oh, that's lazy, I would probably just laugh, and then I will move on. Like, I always let men be themselves. I want you to be yourself around me. So, but at the same time, I'm also going to be myself. So if you feel that I'm lazy because I don't maybe have a traditional job, or I prefer, to do other things other than work, or have a lot of passions, a lot of hobbies, then I know that you're not the type of man who's going to be in my life. And so that's what I've done. I'm not going to argue or anything. I'm just going to remove myself from the situation. But I will say this: I've found that since I've been more serious, and of course done my affirmations, etc., I don't have that problem anymore. I can't remember the last time that I met a man that I thought about dating that didn't like it. They're actually like, oh, they're like, oh, that's interesting. And that's been really good for me, I will say.
Yeah, that's so important to make the man feel comfortable because then yeah, he will reveal himself, right? Like he will reveal his true colors and it'll be easy for you to decide if you want to continue on with that or not, and it'll be clear as well. So it's not like it'll be, cloudy and you'll end up wasting your time. He'll show you and tell you exactly the type of man he is. It's just a matter of, are you going to believe him? Are you going to listen? And are you going to establish the type of love life that you want? Because, as women, we have the power to consent to anything, and things will only go as far as they go if you, as the woman, let it. And one thing I've noticed about men like that do mock you, call you lazy for these things, is that is a place of insecurity. Some of the men that I've met personally in my own life, I've noticed that they've come from homes where the mother was also not kept. So, he's not going to be used to his woman being that way because he wasn't raised to see it either. So he will at least think it is a little abnormal and strange. So that's very important, and it's definitely a red flag in the beginning for me that a man is, thinking that I'm lazy, that I'm doing things that I want to enjoy, that I'm relaxing. That's definitely that's definitely a major red flag. If you want the type of lifestyle that is traditional and being provided for, it is a red flag for a man to say something like that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think it's a good thermometer for ladies to see what type of man he is and whether he is expecting you to do more, because, you want them to be themselves. So the sooner that they show their true colors, the better for everybody. So they can go be with someone else that would make them happier. And you can also move on and be with someone else.
Right, exactly, exactly. Well, we've been on for like an hour and 30 minutes, and I really want to thank you for coming on to my channel and speaking to the ladies about this. This is such an important topic. There's so many young women that do want to have a traditional lifestyle, and they want to have a happy life, a wonderful husband, and children someday, while not losing themselves in the process. And it's very hard to find content creators, particularly Black women, that speak and give tips and advice on living and on that type of lifestyle while being balanced at the same time. So I really want to thank you, and I absolutely love your content. And make sure you guys follow Rachel on Instagram. That's where she posts a lot of her content, and her captions and her stories are always really good. Do you have anything else that you want to say? Any final thoughts?
No, I just want to say thank you so much for allowing me to come on and have this conversation. And I think, ladies, if you're not already subscribed to this channel, please do go ahead and do that and turn your notifications on, so you can be there whenever she goes live, and so you can be a part of this content. Because, like we said today, you want to make sure that you're consuming the right kind of content that gets you where you want to go. And we're all on this journey together. Perfection is not the goal, but progress is. So the last thing I'll definitely say, remember this, that I am not perfect, but I am wonderful. Men are not perfect, but they are wonderful. God bless everyone. And it's been such a pleasure having this conversation with you too.
Yes, thank you so much, Rachel. I can't wait to see what you do next. And yeah, I said to follow Rachel on Instagram, but is there anywhere else where they can find you other than Instagram?
Yes, I do have a free Facebook group as well. So if you go on my Instagram in the, I think it's, yes, in the bio, link in bio, you'll see a few links there. There's a free Facebook group, and I also have a paid Facebook group as well. So you can have a look, see what you prefer. And I'll definitely see you over on any social media network. My name is the same everywhere. I do have TikTok as well. And you can search for me using the same name as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Yeah, I'm going to post the link to that Facebook group in the chat right now. Okay. All right, Rachel, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your evening. And once again, thank you for coming on
No
to my
worries. It's
channel.
been a pleasure. Thank you so much for tonight.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye bye.
All right, guys. Well, that was the stream. I'm so glad that Rachel came on. What did you guys think? What did you guys think? I really enjoyed it. I am also in her Facebook group. It's quite nice. It's very, very much so a nice Facebook group. Um, there's a lot of women in there, all like-minded feminine women, all achieving the same goals and the same lifestyle. If you're catching the replay, I'm gonna leave this live up. If you are catching the replay, unfortunately, Haley from Trophy Wives Club could not join us tonight. But she has decided to reschedule. So turn on the notification bell so that you don't miss it when she comes on, because I would love to hear her perspective as well. Like this video if you ladies haven't already. And until next time, I will talk to you ladies later. Bye.